biggest group. Will you guys please introduce yourselves by saying your name, where you're from originally, and what you are currently watching that you're excited about. So whatever show is like what you're really excited about. And we'll start with Chesney because that's the first name I heard.
All right, hi. Which way do I look?
Well, if you look forward, you're looking at me.
There? Okay.
Yep.
Hi.
Yep, that's perfect.
All right, my name is Chesney. I'm originally from Asheville, North Carolina. Well, right beside it's called Black Mountain. My favorite, or the show I'm watching right now is my favorite show. I'm watching The Office, so yeah,
Nice.
I'm excited about that.
Okay, you will probably hear a lot of Office references in this class because it is my favorite show. So, yay! Cullen, why don't you go next?
So I'm Colin. I'm from Aiken. I've pretty much always been here, and I'm not really watching any TV shows right now. But I've been watching all the Marvel movies over.
Nice. What's your favorite Marvel character?
Probably the Hulk.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Let's go with, is Dharma here or is she not here today?
She's not here.
She is not
Okay.
here.
Okay, Grace, next.
Hey, my name's Grace. I'm from Aiken. I'm not really watching any TV shows right now, but I am binging the Spider-Man movies.
Oh, nice. Have you seen the new one?
It was really good.
I love it.
Was it? Good, I'm glad. Melissa, next.
I'm Melissa. I'm from North Texas originally. I came here with my husband because he's in the Air Force. He's a pilot. So that's how I ended up in South Carolina. And then I'm not really watching anything new. I just have Friends and The Office on repeat all the time.
Wow. Friends? So I've never really been a Friends fan, but so I guess my question for you is, what's your favorite line from Friends of all time?
There's so many. I like the scene where Joey is with Monica and Chandler, and he's writing the letter of intent, I guess, for their adoption agency, and he signs it like baby kangaroo, and like he uses the thesaurus like way too much. That's my favorite scene.
Okay, I like that. The only real episode of Friends that I've seen that I remember is when Joey gets his head stuck in a turkey.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing I can really remember, but that was a pretty good scene. Thank you. Helena? No? Okay.
Not familiar
Candace?
with Helena.
Huh?
Not familiar with the Helena?
Okay. Or is it Helena, maybe?
No.
Okay.
Helena
Candace?
is Helena.
Hey, I'm
What about-
Candace. I'm from Columbia, and I'm not currently watching any shows right now.
What? Nobody's watching TV?
TikTok.
TikTok. Oh, you're
Watching her
show is
TikTok. That's what she watches.
I'm hearing TikToks over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never.
Every morning for a laugh. Got to, right?
I do not talk, but maybe you guys can teach me. Madeline.
Hey, I'm Madeline. I'm originally from Indiana, but I call South Carolina home because I graduated high school from Aiken, or South Aiken. So technically not from here, but I always tell people I'm from here. And I'm currently watching Grey's Anatomy and Survivor.
Oh, some old school shows. Well, are you watching like a new season of Survivor? I don't actually know if it's still on the air, or are they like old episodes?
I think it's on air, but I'm not watching whatever is like the current season. I think Netflix has like some of the seasons from like 2015, I think, or something like that. So I think I'm watching the older ones right now.
Got it. Is Grey's Anatomy still on the air?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I am out of the loop, apparently. All right, Kaylee?
I'm Kaylee. I'm from here. I've always lived here, and I just constantly watch Chronomines. I've seen every episode at least 3 times.
Are you a true crime junkie?
Absolutely.
Okay, we can talk about that later, because that's it's creepy, but that's my favorite thing on the planet.
I'm obsessed.
I got the great podcast.
I'm obsessed with serial killers.
With what?
Same.
I'm obsessed with serial killers. Obsessed with them.
Oh my gosh, I got the girl that I listen to as I go to and from.
Dr. C, you want to introduce yourself?
Me too. What's that?
You want to introduce yourself?
Did you want me to say something?
Yeah,
I'm
just
sorry.
say who you are and what you're watching.
Oh yeah. Hey, Dr. C. I'm sorry. Kaylee and I just went off on true crime podcasts. We got to exchange it. We're just like, I love my true crime podcast.
I'll need that list one of these days.
I love to stream when I'm doing work that's not as. I do a lot of accreditation work, so my mind doesn't have to be 100% on it. To be fair, Succession. Oh, wow. I've been streaming Succession. That show Succession. Dexter New Blood, if you love serial killers. Dexter New Blood, and I've been streaming this new one called Kitz, Kitz. It's on Netflix. It takes place in some Nordic country where the people are. It takes place in Germany. It's in the Alps. They're in the Swiss Alps, I think, but they're German.
Okay, cool.
Anyway,
well,
I like I like comedies, but I also like dark stuff. So, anyway.
Yeah, I have been. Well, we'll get to me in a minute, but I'm with you. All right, let's go to our Sakahachi friends. Faith, you want to start?
Dr. Lunsman, real quick. I just got an email from Helena.
Okay.
She just got accepted into the program.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll catch her up next
I think she missed class today because she just got in yesterday. She probably didn't realize.
That's okay. We'll get her.
Yeah. So you were right. There is a Helena, but I just got the email just now.
I'll get her caught up. It's not a big deal. If she wants to run over and join us, she's welcome to, but I assume that would be very stressful.
Well, I don't know where she's at. Yeah, I'll email her right now to tell her.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Faith, you want to tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're watching?
So my name's Faith Baker. I'm from St. George, South Carolina, and the shows are not on right now, but I like Outer Banks and Yellowstone.
Yellowstone's great. Oh, good one. Love Yellowstone.
I have not seen it, but I should probably watch it. So thank you for the recommendation.
Easy good.
Shauna?
I'm Shauna Chastro. I'm from St. George, South Carolina, and I'm rewatching Grey's Anatomy, rewatching The Vampire Diaries, and watching the Marvel movies because I've never seen a whole bunch of them.
All right. So you and Cullen could talk about Marvel and let us know where you're at in the series. Who's your favorite of the Marvel characters?
I think I like Thor the best just because I think his movies are funny.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like him the best too. And also that actor,
Yeah.
Dr. Fears, you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. I am Dr. Fears. I'm originally from Sumter, so hey homies. And I am currently watching Married at First Sight. My husband and I are taking bets as to see who's gonna remain married for the time that they have on the show. And I'm also watching reruns of Perry Mason. He intrigues me. So that's me.
Nice.
Hey, Perry Mason, who's he?
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Henry Hudson, and I come from a military background, so I'm all over the place. I was born in South Dakota. I lived overseas for a couple of years, and now I've lived here for the longest. And as for the show I'm watching, kind of going on the serial killer thing, watching the show called Death Note.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
It's in the. I'm a bit of a weed. It's an anime.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Guy has the ability to kill anybody, anywhere, but as long as they have a name and face. And he's up against the world's greatest detective.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. I don't think I've ever gotten into an anime show.
I would recommend it. It's pretty good.
Give it a try. We're missing one of our Sumter students, Erin. She will be with us next week. So I'll have her tell you about herself when she's here then. I'm Christina Lunsman. You are welcome to call me Dr. Lunsman, or you're welcome to call me Christina. I don't care. I am originally from Illinois, so our friend from Indiana, we're neighbors. And I am currently, you guys are gonna think I'm so weird, I've been watching old movies recently, so I haven't had a lot of shows on. But just last night, or 2 nights ago, I watched the Audrey Hepburn movie, How to Steal a Million. It was very good. I highly recommend it. So that's been me recently. But if you're looking for a decent comedy show, and if you have kind of a gross sense of humor, I recommend Plebs. It's on Amazon Prime, I think, and it's set in like Rome, ancient Rome, but it's a comedy. I really like it. So there's my recommendation. All right, well, it's nice to meet everybody. Thank you all for sharing your things that you're doing and reading. Before we get into the presentation, I did want to walk you through the Blackboard course real quick, just so you know where to find things. So when you come on to our class, you'll go to, the syllabus is the first link under homepage. Everything else is going to be in readings and resources or assignments. So under readings and resources each week, if we have things that you need to print out or access from your laptop or whatever, it'll be in the weekly resources. And then all of the readings are in one folder. They should be in order, but I don't know what it'll look like on your end. And then all of the assignments are already in, so you can see how much they're worth and when they're due and all of that. If there are any errors, please let me know. I am not going to get mad or annoyed if you tell me, hey, Dr. Lunsman, you put the wrong date or whatever. I appreciate it when you guys do that. So are there any questions about accessing stuff on Blackboard or anything that you have already run into a problem with? Okay. So typically I don't use like juvenile things on my PowerPoints, but this class to me is very much about fun and whimsy and bringing joy to the classroom. And when I saw this template, it brought me joy, so I put it on there. So normally I don't do that, but I thought it was cute. Plus they're reading, which, you know, literacy and creative arts, we want to be reading. So I'm going to give you guys a second to think, and if you have pen and paper, you want to jot ideas down, that's fine. Or if you have your computer and you want to type anything. I would like you to think about a time that you struggled to learn something new, but were successful in the end. So you struggled, but you were successful. And I just want you to take a minute, jot down ideas, think about a time where you struggled and were successful in the end. Just take a minute to think about that. Okay, does anybody want to share what their struggle was and how they were successful? Do you want me to call you Heath or Henry?
I don't want. I prefer Heath.
So we're gonna call Heath Heath, not Henry. That's his preferred name.
Yeah. I know when I was younger, I was really, really bad at drawing and art, and didn't like it at all. I couldn't do it at all. Best I could do was like draw a stick figure, and eventually I just kept working on it, and stick figure evolved into potato fingers, and potato fingers evolved into I could actually make like money off of it now.
Okay.
So occasionally I'll do some drawings for and sell them for commission.
And what made that possible?
A lot of effort.
Effort. Okay, perseverance probably.
I had to keep trying over and over and over again. I had people that helped me, my art teacher. I had an actual teacher, like went out and personally got an art teacher, and I just kept drawing, getting out of my comfort zone, and kept trying different things.
Okay, awesome. So one thing I like about this story is you had to be bad at it before you could be good at it. I think that's a really important note. What about somebody in Aiken? Did any of you think of a time where you struggled to learn something but were successful in the end? Yes, go ahead.
I can go. Actually, last semester, I took a non-Western literature class. It was writing intensive. We had to write this really, really long essay at the end, and we had to read this book and like kind of talk about the culture with like just a completely different culture. It was actually South Korean culture, and I didn't know much about it, and a lot of tears throughout that class trying to figure out and writing this paper. And I actually ended up, I thought I was okay with getting a C, but I made an A on the paper, so I guess I call that a success. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you attribute your success to?
I worked really hard on it. Like hardest thing I've worked on so far. Just spent a lot of time thinking and going over and revising and correcting and asking questions, and then I figured it out. So definitely perseverance.
All right. And also, same kind of with Heath, you had to be bad at it first. You couldn't just start out knowing it. You had to really struggle through it. Thank you. Can you say your name again?
Chesney.
Chesney, thank you. I'm going to try really hard to get your names, but with masks and being distanced, it's going to be really hard, so please don't get mad if I don't remember. I will try my best. Anybody else in Aiken want to share?
I can.
Great.
Mine actually has nothing to do with like school, but I used to be a competition cheerleader, and we had a routine that I was not hitting as hard as I wanted to hit, and I was getting called out, and it was really irritating me. So I did some extra tumbling stuff, and I did extra practice, and I actually did one-on-one with one of like the assistant coaches, and I actually did really good, and I got an award during that routine and that competition.
That's awesome. And so, what do you attribute your success to?
100% to the assistant coach, because he did not have to do one-on-one, did that extra time. He didn't get nothing in return other than seeing me do better. We didn't pay him to do it. He just stayed and just committed to helping me.
I love that, because I think that's another really important point, is that we don't become successful usually on our own. We always have people supporting us as we go through difficult times and as we learn difficult things. So that's a great example. Thank you. Sports are a really good one to draw from, because it's very obvious when you're bad at something. It's equally as obvious when you get better. So that I was thinking actually about, so when I was in grad school, I joined a rugby team. And so all through high school I played soccer, and then in undergrad I played lacrosse, and I was like, I can do rugby. I don't know if you know a lot about rugby, but you get hit really hard when you play rugby. And I was very bad at it at first, but like you were saying, I had people helping me along and working one-on-one with me, and I ended up winning. It was within the team, but I won essentially our most improved award. Same thing though, like your story. Thank you. Can you tell me your name again?
I'm Kaylee.
Kaylee, thank you. What about sock? Faith or Shauna, do either of you have one you want to share?
I would say in high school, in calculus class, and also in my art class, I had teachers that they pushed me to my limits, but in a good way. And so it was frustrating to learn anything that they tried to teach me, but in the end, it was them who helped me get over that and to move forward with it.
So you also are attributing the success to help, like being supported by others?
Yeah, so they would challenge me, but in a good way, in a way that I needed in order to learn whatever they were teaching.
I think that's a great example too, and a great point, because when we do things that are easy for us, it feels good because we're like, oh, I know how to do this, I'm great. We don't grow unless we're challenged. We don't become better people, better teachers, and better students unless someone's pushing us. So I think that's a great example. A positive challenge is going to make you better. Anybody else want to share? I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So one thing you'll learn if you have to do virtual teaching, which most of you probably will, is the thing you miss the most is being able to read facial cues, especially with masks. I cannot tell if you need me to slow down. So it's awkward, but tell me if you need me to stop, please. I don't want to rush anybody. So you guys came up, you said some things that I think are really important. Learning is challenging. Everything you mentioned in some way was you being active. You were actively trying to become better at the thing. It's probably, most of you talked about something in which you were autonomous. So you were working to become better at a thing individually. And you were engaged in whatever it was that you were learning. The one thing we didn't talk about is interdisciplinary, and we're gonna talk a lot about that in this class. Learning, by definition, is when you have a new concept that builds on something you already know. So we, as humans, make connections, and that's how learning happens. So as a child, you might have confused a cow and a horse because you first learned what a horse was, and then you saw a cow, and you just assumed that's a cow, or that's a horse, because you already know what a horse is. And you had to learn that they're two different animals. That's how our brains work, that's how we learn. So it's silly. Is that an airplane?
Yes, it was from Salt.
Okay. I lost my train of thought. But it's silly to separate the disciplines. In schools we do that. We have math, and then we have literature, and then we have reading, and then we have science. Really, learning happens more effectively when we combine things and we do interdisciplinary education. So that's really one of the big things that we're going to learn in this class. So on the first slide, I asked, what is the point of this class? It's to help you become better at helping kids learn. And we're going to incorporate the things that they love the most. Art, music, moving, activity. So in this class, you will not create a worksheet because that's not something that we do. Our goal is instead to figure out ways to make students active learners. And it's going to be messy, and it's going to be hard, but it's also going to be very rewarding. Okay, so I was trying to think of when I want to illustrate how learning works, I was trying to think of how we learn vocabulary. When you were younger, did any of you have lists of vocabulary that you had to learn in school?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Was it easy to learn those words by just reading them?
No.
Depends on the word, maybe. What helped you learn new vocabulary?
Synonyms. You can figure out what words mean what. Are you basing what you've registered it's looking like? or sounding like, and you can kind of put two and two together based on the rest of the word.
Yeah, so you said two things there, synonyms, so connecting it with something you already know, and then also looking and thinking, well, what other words do I know that have those same parts, those same prefixes or suffixes or roots? What else made it easier to learn the word?
My parents drilling me with flashcards.
Okay, so just kill and drill, lots of memorization. You wouldn't just learn it by hearing it one time. You had to do it over and over and practice. Mm-hmm. What else?
Estimation, kind of going off what I was saying, the more you get used to doing that kind of process, the better you get at it, the closer you get to it. So by drilling into your head that you're able to figure out, glue together pieces, the better you get at it, and the more it's going to be easier for you to do in the future.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. For me, it had to be used in a sentence. I had to hear it in context. You can tell me all day what the definition is of something. I'm not going to understand unless I hear it in context. Is anybody else like that? So, some of you? Okay. So, I don't know if you've ever heard the word huckster. I thought it was kind of a different word. Some of you may be familiar, some may not. But when I taught vocabulary, because I haven't told you much about my background, but I taught 7th grade English language arts. That was my primary job. Though I've taught other things, that's my love, I'll be honest. I love those weird little middle schoolers. This is how I taught vocabulary. We would put the word on the board, and then students would tell me, I would not tell them the definition at all. We would just start with, what does this sound like? This would have been a tough one with 7th graders, because you know the first thing they would have said is the F word. And then we'd laugh, and we'd move on. But then we'd say, okay, what other words do you know that end in stir?
Youngster.
Youngster, okay, what else?
Gangster.
Gangster, good. Jokester, maybe?
Jester.
Jester. Okay, so what are those? So we'd write all those up here, and we'd look to see what those have in common.
They're descriptive features.
Yeah, they're descriptive. There's somebody doing something. It's like a job, maybe. Or it's some kind of, it seems like it has an adjective associated with it, maybe.
It's like describing what they are, what they do, what they are.
It's describing them, exactly. Okay, and then we might break it up and say, has anybody ever heard another word or sound, something that uses huck? And so in 7th grade, they read Huck Finn, so that would have been one of the first things we put up there. And then we talk about what we know about Huck Finn. And you know, as we go along, they would come to learn. Does anybody have a guess? Without looking it up. If you looked it up, don't tell me. Does anybody have a guess what it means?
I guess something similar to like shucking. Like you shuck corn. No?
But that's a good guess. Because a corn husk kind of sounds like huck.
Yeah.
Maybe someone joking a lot?
Okay, it's close to that. That's a really good guess. A huckster is someone who's aggressive or dishonest when they sell you something. So it still fits in that category, the stir category, but huck, if you've not heard that word before, now you know. You might have heard someone say hawk, like they hawk things, they're selling things. It comes from the same Latin word. So as we go along, students might say, oh, we'll put hawk in the synonyms, or we'll put it in the associations.
It kind of fits in what you're talking about with like Huck Finn, because he did the exact same thing when he made people do stuff for him.
Yes, Huck Finn, if you've not heard the story, I'll just tell you quickly, he was a liar. He would lie all the time. So the students in 7th grade will have read that story, or at least have typically read some part of it, and so they would be familiar with him, and that would help them remember. A huckster is somebody who is aggressive, so like a used car salesman that would be an association they might have. And so now, by the next day, they're much more likely to remember that than if I just told them the definition and said, remember this. And I wanted to do this activity with you because I wanted you to get a feel for what I mean when I say learning is active. I'm not just having the students sit in their desks and memorize. Instead, we're working together to use an inquiry method to try to figure something out. Anybody have thoughts or questions so far? Okay, so in your stories that you told about learning something new, we hit on both of these, collaboration or teamwork and perseverance. Those are the things that will help you be successful in this class. They will also help you be successful in the program. You are some of you are in your first semester in the professional program. Some of you are in your second semester. Sabihachi, both of you are second semester, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the group what you've learned so far in the professional program about like just what it takes to be successful?
My number one thing would be communication, because everyone seems pretty understanding of whatever's going on in your individual life, as long as you're communicating with your CTs, your professors. So my thing would be, I've learned to be communicative.
That's a great piece of advice. What else?
Collaboration.
Can you give us an example?
Like collaborating with other teachers. Like, because in my practicum last semester, me and my CT, like when I was like attending different meetings and activities with her, she said always like whenever they have like a planning day all day on Wednesday pretty much and whenever they do their planning, they all go into like, it's like a meeting, but it's not really a formal meeting, and they all work together. She said they can get their lesson planning done together, like for all subjects in like 45 minutes because they all collaborate together. So it's like all of third grade is together. So they just kind of collaborate and they come up with different ideas because their English lessons are automatically set because they do open court. So they have to follow what open court says. But for the other subjects, they would collaborate and they would come together. She said there were some teachers that didn't like doing it. And she said that was kind of crazy because you should want to collaborate because it makes your job so much easier when you communicate. And another teacher may have a suggestion for something, like let's say one child is struggling with something and you don't know how to help them. That teacher may know like, oh, hey, I've dealt with that before, so I can help you.
Honestly, that is probably the best advice I think you could get as a new teacher or as a student teacher. I was in a 4th grade class this morning, and the teacher I was with has been struggling with this student. He has a lot of special needs. He has a very hard time sitting still. And as we know, in school, you need to be able to sit still occasionally. And I was just in there. This is my first time in her classroom. So obviously that changes things because this student is not used to me. But I just walked over, and instead of saying, hey, you need to, I said, so the biggest issue today was he would not keep his mask on his face. He kept dropping it on the floor. And so I picked it up and I said, hey, is this yours? And he said, yes. And I was like, where should it be? And he said, on my face. I said, yeah. And he kept it on the rest of the class period. I did nothing probably that she hasn't tried. But just by acting like I didn't know if he was supposed to wear it or not, I think it something clicked in his head, and he was like, oh, I can take ownership of this. It took maybe 1 second out of my day, and it changed the rest of the day for that teacher. And I think that's what collaboration is. Sometimes we can spend so much time trying to solve a problem on our own. Someone can look at it and say, oh, what, have you tried this? And it'll fix everything. So I love that you mentioned the importance of collaboration in lesson planning, because we can really benefit from everyone else's expertise. So thank you, that's great. Do you have, since you're also second semester, Heath, do you have any piece of advice?
there is never such thing as over-informing. Like, I got good advice, Luz, from you, that there is never such thing as over-informing or over-communicating with teacher or CP. That saved my butt a lot of times in his class, because I would text him immediately as soon as something came up, and he would be, all right, we can do it this day, this time, we can do it this thing, and the way. And if he didn't, he'll be like, all right, no, here's what we can do, here's an idea I have, say if you can mess around with it a bit, and I was able to make lesson plans out of that.
That's great. So I like that piece of advice too, and it kind of goes back to the idea of teamwork and collaboration. We rely on each other so much in education because we're it. When the kids come in, if we're not there, there's nobody to teach them. So we rely on each other so much, and I think now is the time to learn that. So I would recommend that you all get into a group chat if you haven't already, so that you can rely on each other. I'm always here, I will always answer your questions, but I know sometimes you just want the opinion of a peer as opposed to advice from your professor. So I highly recommend it. Heath is here by himself today, but you'll have us, another person. Those of you in Aiken, you guys have 7 total, I think, 8 if we count the other student, right? So use each other, rely on each other. You're there together, and use me as a backup too. I'm always here for you. And Dr. Plazo too, she's fabulous. She'll always be there, and Dr. Fierce. You guys have a great team, rely on each other. Okay, so the big part of today, I'm not gonna go through the whole syllabus, because that is boring. Maybe this is boring, I don't know. But I wanna talk through our assignments, because the whole point of the class, I had a professor in grad school who would say assessment is everything and everything is assessment. And I believe that to my core. Everything we do, we're checking to see if our students are learning and we're adjusting accordingly. And that's why assignments are so important, because they tell me what you're learning and what I need to adjust and what I need to do. So we'll talk through all of them. The biggest assignment in this class is lesson planning, so we're going to talk about that last. And then we're going to do some today. We're going to actually start lesson planning. So, like I said, all of the resources are on Blackboard. You may want to pull them up as we're talking, or pull them out if you printed them. Okay, this is the most important thing. Go to your Practicum Placement. This is where you will learn the most. Has anybody already started in Practicum? Have you guys, everyone has their placement though, right? Yeah? Okay. I know you have talked with Dr. Plazo about your placements in your other class, so I'm not going to belabor the point. The one thing that's going to be different, I guess, about this class, or the one piece that's applicable to this class, is I will observe one lesson and your CT will observe one lesson that is specific to this class. We'll talk about what that entails when we get to lesson planning. Can I just get confirmation from all 3 campuses that you know how to access GoReact? Yes?
Which one's that again?
Hold on, we'll come back. Sock, do you guys know how to get on GoReact?
Like just goreact.com?
So Dr. Collazo has set everybody up so that they have access to GoReact. It is a platform where you upload videos of your teaching so that we can comment on them. Does that sound familiar?
I've never done GoReact for any class, other than to do, like, in one of my classes there's an introductory video that's due, but I thought I had to make my own account and do all that. I've never heard about it from Dr. Collazo.
Okay, I will make myself a note to make sure she gets you guys accounts if you don't have them already.
Okay.
At least get you the login information that you need. Aiken students, have you heard of GoReact? No? Okay. So we'll make sure that everybody in this class has access to it. I'm so glad I asked that question. I was going to breeze past because I thought you all knew. Don't worry about it. I'll send you instructions via email. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, that, just so you know, your practicum hours are not due until the end of the semester. So you should be going every week. I understand that things will happen with COVID. Do your best. We are flexible. Don't stress. Just keep us informed. Don't stress about it. We'll get it handled. My hope is if your classes go virtual, like in SOC, that they'll let you join virtually, and those hours absolutely count toward your observation hours. Any questions about your practicum? One question I typically get from students is how you record them. There is a website, if you haven't seen it, it's one that you will need to go to, so if you are not familiar with it, you're going to need to get familiar with it. I think I linked the lesson plan template this week. Yes, it's on the same page as this. This will just automatically open to the lesson plan template, but if you want to find all the forms and resources that you're going to need this semester, next semester, and student teaching, you go to USC Aiken Education Department, Forms and Resources. It's linked on our Department of Ed main page. But under this, there is a Practicum Timesheet. I'm sure those in Aiken have gotten these from Dr. Colazo. If you need another copy, this is where you find them. Open. It's going to take a minute. There it goes. You need a separate one for each class. So you will have this form for my class. It needs to have 20 hours on it. Any questions about that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Once you get the 20 hours, do you want us to keep going? Or I know last semester, once we had our hours, we didn't have to go anymore. As long as we've done the 2 lessons and everything.
I think that is a fair question. I encourage you to get as many hours as you can. If you are not enjoying it and not wanting to go, I think that indicates a problem. You should love it. You should love going to this school. So do you have to get more than 20 hours? No. I hope that you want to. I would assume, and then the other thing is, the more hours you get now, the better prepared you will be for student teaching. Especially with COVID and things getting shut down, people have missed out on opportunities. Like in 201, we used to place you guys in schools. Ever since COVID hit, we've been virtual in that class, that 1 credit clinical class. So you guys have missed the opportunity to be in schools, and I would encourage you, if you can, to go as much as you can. You should fall in love with those kids, you know? And I get,
It's not that I don't want to go. It's just life is busy anyways, and like with work and stuff, I'm having to not do that so I can do this. And so I was just curious about when the cutoff would be.
Yeah, as long as you get 20 hours, you've met the requirement for the class.
Okay.
But yeah, I do understand everybody's got to work and you have other classes. Completely get it. If you can try to go. So I know for your class with Dr. C, she was saying you guys will have a specific day that you go to your placement. If you're going once a week, you will get your hours in no time, especially with your immersion weeks. You guys you'll have way more than enough. So it was a good question. Other questions about practicum? weeks, we will have an art project that we're going to do in class. So I mentioned this in the syllabus, but I just want to say it out loud. Keep an eye on announcements because I'll let you know if there's stuff you need to bring. Don't go out and buy new things unless you want to. You should have stuff around that you can use, like if you go to Dr. C or in the education room at Aiken, or if you ask Dr. Fears, I'm sure there's glue and markers and crayons and stuff around. If you need me to send you stuff, just let me know and I can. But most of the time, we're going to use what we have available because that's what we're going to do in public schools. If we don't have it, we don't have it. So I think next week, I put this at the end of the presentation. There's a couple things I want you to bring, but it's just like whatever you have is fine. Just bring what you can. It's hard because I'm not there with all of you, so I can't just bring a bunch of magazines for you to cut up. You're going to have to bring them yourself. If you guys want to designate someone to bring things, or you want to like share, that's great. Just use what you can. So keep an eye on the announcements for what you need to bring that next week. Sometimes it might just be computer paper. You can grab it out of the education room or whatever. Just depends on what we're doing. So we don't have one this week, obviously, but we will be doing one next week. This one, I'm hoping that you're excited about. This one has you go to your library. So that's the first thing you're going to have to do is figure out where your local library is if you don't know. Go with a buddy if you would like. You're welcome to do this together. But you're going to go to the library and you're going to familiarize yourself with the children's literature section at your library. So I put a scavenger hunt on Blackboard already, so you could do it tomorrow if you wanted to. But by the 3rd, you need to go to by February 3rd, you need to go to the library and do the scavenger hunt. And the point isn't really like you have to find every single thing. More the point is to familiarize yourself with what's there, what variety they have, what they maybe should have more of and don't. And then there's a 1-paragraph reflection that goes along with it. If you don't have a library card, you're still allowed to go in the library. So even if you don't have a library card, you can still do this. I would recommend, though, if you don't have one, now would be a good time to get one. Since, as teachers, I'm sure you'll be going to the library to get books. Typically, some students have asked in the past if they could do this at their school library, so at the school that you're observing at. I say yes, but you have to do both then. Because I want you to go to the public library, but if you want to do it at your school library too, that's great. The reason I have you go to the public library is their selection of children's books is usually much smaller. Doing the scavenger hunt at your school will take much longer, typically. Questions about this assignment?
Is it like is it like specific books or is it just like genres?
Here, I'll show you. I will show you. Oh, it's in assignments. I don't remember. Did I not upload it yet to Blackboard? I thought I had. Okay, well now's the time to do it, I suppose. Bear with me, I'm going to pull up my OneDrive so I can show you the scavenger hunt, and then I'm going to put it in Blackboard right now so that I don't forget to do it. Did anybody find it? Did anybody see it? Am I losing my mind?
No, I didn't see it. That's what I was asking.
I see the tab for it under assignments, but I don't see the document.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too, which I could have sworn I put it up, so I am sorry.
It might not attach properly. This Blackboard was being weird.
Blackboard is the worst. You'll never hear me say that again. I don't like to complain about it, but man, do I not like Blackboard.
Whenever you need it to work, it doesn't.
Okay. Where is the, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm not doing well with the technology today. Okay, this is the scavenger hunt. Maybe I was planning to go back and edit it some more or something. I don't know why I didn't upload it. But you're going to find children's books that have these things. So the first one, a first sentence that is 5 words or fewer. A first sentence that is at least 20 words. So, and what I put in the example or in the directions, for any that you can't find, include the name of a book that has something similar. For example, if you can't find a first sentence that mentions a city, you might find one that mentions a state or a country. So I'm not holding you to like, you must find a book that has that is set in South Carolina, though you should be able to in your local library. Find one that's set in North Carolina then, if you can't find one that's specifically that. If there's any you absolutely cannot find, just write that down. I'm not going to be mad. The goal is really for you to just get in there and explore the books. Okay, I will post that when we take a break. I'll post that on Blackboard. Okay, and then I'm going to talk about our final exam before we do the lesson planning stuff. So that's all your assignments except for the lesson plans and the final exam. The final exam is actually a final project. So this is what's in the syllabus. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put so many words on the slide. But I'm just going to read it out loud so we all have knowledge together, and then you can ask questions. So your final project requires you to become more familiar with the ways in which children's literature is responding to the demands for more diverse representation among authors and illustrators. You are tasked with considering how children's literature can be used as a mechanism to bring visibility to stories and experiences that have not often enough been told and shared in schools, and to invite young readers to the joy of seeing the full range of human diversity in the instructional materials we use. The success of your project will depend on your knowledge of content, the quality and thoroughness of your research, and the appropriateness of arts integration. For this project, you will select a theme, such as racial diversity, exceptionalities, religious diversity, etc., and select multiple texts that address that theme. You will consider how these texts might be incorporated into the classroom to help children develop an asset orientation toward people who are different from them. Your goal is to create a multimedia presentation that shares the importance of your theme, a wide variety of children's lit, ways to incorporate various arts instruction with the texts you have selected, resources for teachers. So it's a 10-minute presentation. And you need to submit your topic to me by week 6. If you know your topic today, you can email me now. You just need to make sure I have that topic by week 6. So this is a pretty involved project. Part of the reason we're doing the Children's Lit Scavenger Hunt is so that you kind of explore what's out there so that you can be successful in this project. What questions do you have so far?
Do you have any examples of previous ones?
Of previous ones? I've not used this before.
Okay.
I've not used this assignment before, so I do not have any previous examples. However, if you are nervous, if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, I will tell you, every assignment but the final exam, you're able to resubmit if you want a higher grade. For the final exam, well, really any assignment, but especially for the final exam, feel free to email me or submit your project early if you would like feedback. I'm happy to do that if you ever want me to look at something. I think there are some maybe confusing words or maybe not confusing, maybe difficult to understand words, depending on the context. So one thing students don't always know is that exceptionalities means differences. So it might mean that a student has some kind of disability, students are gifted, whatever the case may be, something that makes them a little different from their peers. Asset orientation, sometimes students don't know what that means. To have an asset orientation towards something means that you see it as valuable. So we want to engender in students that diversity is a good thing, and it's good to know people who are different from you, so that we want to find literature that helps them develop that type of mindset. One thing I have not had time to do yet, but I will do hopefully in the next week or two, is put up all the rubrics for the assignments. I don't have a rubric up for this one yet, so I will get that up soon so you guys can take a look at it.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the art projects that are in class, are they due at the end of class? Or is
Yeah,
that, we'll get them done in class, yeah. I mean, I can't predict. We may get really into something and you guys are going to want to finish it at home or whatever, that's fine. But the goal is so that you don't have extra work outside of class, that we'll actually do them in class. Okay.
Good question. How are you feeling about the final exam project?
It's not a 20-page paper, so I'm happy.
It's not a 20-page paper. It may take as much time to develop your presentation, but you're not writing 20 pages, that's absolutely for sure.
Anything but like a paper I'm good with.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. We don't really have papers in this class, though the lesson plans sometimes feel like writing a paper. Is anybody excited about this project? Okay, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.
So funny question.
What? You should be excited. You should be excited to learn. I'm excited to see what books you find. Finding children's literature can be really fun. I have one semester, I do something kind of similar to this in my children's lit class. And one semester, I had students read, they had to pick 8 books to read. And I had a student buy all of them. And I said, why would you buy them when you could just get them from the library? And she said, I want them in my classroom library. And I said, okay, I like that. That's good. Okay, if you come up with questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm not going to rush us through. So the next thing we're going to talk about is lesson planning. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the class talking about today. So I'm going to have us take a break before we get into that, just because I don't want to stop in the middle of it. So for this class, because we're together for so long, I like to give us like 15 minutes just to stretch, go get a soda or whatever. So let's come back at 3:30. If you want to mute your site, I can talk you through how to do that. If you want to, you don't have to. But if you go up to, if somebody wants to, you go up to the conference thing, the crestron at the front of the room. And there is under, under conference controls, there's a privacy button that will mute you. So I think, I'm going to try it and see if you can still hear me. Okay, so I muted it, and it didn't seem like you could hear me. So I'm going to mute us. If you guys want to mute you, you can. If not, just leave it. But we'll be back at 3:30. So far, I guess we can just check in. So far, what do you think? This, Teams, what works better?
Well, I did have a concern just with COVID and stuff, like what if somebody has to quarantine and then because we're using this, we just miss class altogether?
It will be recorded.
It would be recorded. Okay, that was my concern.
Yeah, so I am trying to figure out right now how to do that because I don't know. And also, I was told it automatically will record for us, but then I don't know how to access the recording. So I'll find all of that out, but I was told we'll just be able to record it and then you guys can watch it on your own time if you have to miss class and do the assignments at home and then submit them.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
With immersion weeks, and like I know it says short class on the like the schedule and everything. What's that mean? Like what do we still come in?
We have to talk. That's a good question. We need to talk about that. When you talk with your CTs, I want you to find out what the end of the day is. Typically, you're done around 2, but just to be on the safe side, my hope is that we can start class at 3:30, but we may have to do it even a little bit later, depending on when everybody gets out of class. So we'll still have class, it'll just be shortened. What?
So the day, so like for the school we're going to, ends at 2:10.
Okay, so I think 3:30 should be fine to start, but we'll see kind of how things go.
And then would that mean that class would go past the 4 o'clock?
No. That's why I said short. That's why I said short.
Okay.
We'll still end at the same time. We'll just meet later.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked about that because I meant to bring it to your attention. So that's part of the reason that we have this class later in the day, so it doesn't affect your teaching schedule as much. But on those immersion weeks, just to make sure that you don't miss anything, we'll meet at 3:30. So if you want to write that on your syllabus, I'll probably go in. I'm going to upload a new version of the syllabus because I've already seen some errors. Because, we all make mistakes. So I'll upload a new version of it. Once we finish, I make sure that I have caught all of them, or as many as I can. Please let me know if you see mistakes too.
Is that just for immersion week? Or, okay.
Oh, I did have a question about the final exam project. When is that due? Because it doesn't have a due date on the calendar.
So, I think I just learned when our final is going to be. That's why I didn't have it on there. I believe it's the Tuesday of finals week, not Thursday, but I will look and I'll put that up as soon as I know for sure. We also, because of the education department has kind of weird class times, I want to double check with all of you when you have availability. Most of the time people want to do the final earlier if possible, so we can look at everybody's schedules and see what would work for the final. I'm flexible. It doesn't matter to me. So if you guys want to do the final the first day of finals week, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter. So I'll send out a survey to everybody and see. I'll tell you what our set time is, and then if we want to try to do it earlier, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter. But it'll just, to answer your question, it will be due at the final time, whenever that happens to be.
Okay.
Good questions. Anybody else have a question? All right, let's get into lesson planning. So this class is about English language arts and the other arts and combining them all together. So that's really the bulk of this class is going to be focused on lesson planning. I've linked in the PowerPoint to the lesson plan rubric, which is on that same forms website that I showed you. My computer just froze. Dang it. That's okay. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So, have you all seen this before? Why is it not zooming? Does not give me the option. Let's make it bigger. Okay. Have you lesson planned before? Anybody using this rubric? You have? Somebody has. Has anybody in Aiken? Okay. All right, so we have some people who are familiar with it, which is awesome. That makes me very happy. If you've never lesson planned, that's okay. I will get you through it. It is hard when you start, but it will become second nature as you go through the program. So, I don't know why I'm on that. So everything will be graded on that rubric, but we're going to start with unit planning and work backwards. So when we plan in real life, like as teachers, we unit plan first. And Faith was kind of talking about this when she mentioned they got together and did collaborative planning. Typically you start with what's the end goal, and then you plan your lessons based on your end goal. So we're going to start with unit planning, and we're going to work backwards to lessons. So the first thing you need to do is identify what standards you're going to be teaching. When you go meet with your partner teacher or your cooperating teacher, they will probably have standards set out for the rest of the semester that they need to teach. I would recommend using whatever you're doing in your classroom. So if you can just get from them what are the, by immersion week 2, what are we supposed to be focusing on? And then build your unit plan around that topic. You're going to do both English language arts and visual and performing arts standards. So if you have a laptop, I recommend that you pull them up so you can look at them on your own computer. I'm going to pull up the visual arts ones because I would assume if you're familiar at all with lesson planning, you've seen the English ones. We can always look at those too. But the visual arts ones aren't really as, most of the time students aren't as familiar with them. So it's the South Carolina Department of Ed website. The standards are under visual and performing arts. So your teacher will have assigned you probably what English language arts standards you're going to be working with. You get to pick what you want to do for the visual and performing arts ones. Your teacher might tell you you can teach any standard you want for English. Most of the time they have some idea though. So I want you to kind of just flip through the standards and see what you're interested in. We will cover most of this. We might not get into all the theater ones, but there's all music, dance, visual arts. So I want you to take a few minutes, if you have your laptop, and go through the standards. If you have your phone, you should be able to pull them up on your phone as well, and see what you might be interested in teaching. might notice as you're looking at these is that they don't really tell you a grade level for many of them. They're more based on proficiency. So if you're thinking about it in terms of grade level, early elementary is going to be to the left, and later elementary is going to be to the right. You probably aren't at the elementary level going to get beyond intermediate, but you might have some students who can. But you're really going to stay in the novice and intermediate sections. Anybody seeing a standard that looks particularly fun to teach?
I like the theater ones just because I like having kids create skits of what they know.
That would be so good to integrate with the English language arts also.
And I was trying to think, because the practicum location that I'm going to, they use reading court, so they have a very specific ELA structure. So I feel like with the theater ones, I could definitely incorporate that into what they have to do, because they could just create a skit about what they're learning in reading court.
That's a great point, and I'm really glad you said that, because you will have constraints. Like, you're going to be in a classroom that has stuff already built in that they're doing, so you might have to get really creative about how you integrate these. So one thing that is important to remember about unit and lesson planning is that sometimes you have to do multiple drafts. You might have to go back to the drawing board, and it's frustrating, but it's real life. Because, you know, you might start planning and be like, oh, I really want to use these theater standards, and then you find out your partner teacher doesn't want you to do that, and you have to do something completely different. That could happen. So I'm glad you're thinking about the curriculum that they're using, though. That's really good. So as you're thinking about your unit plan, which is what we're starting with, so the unit plan, a good rule of thumb is you don't really want a unit to be more days than the age of the students. So if your students are in early elementary, it's really a good idea to stay like no more than 2 weeks. Like 5, 6, 7 days is really plenty of time for a unit. I think a short unit is better, typically with elementary students, because, you know, coming back, especially after COVID, their attention spans aren't all that long. So we don't want to stick on the same topic for too long. So as you're thinking about planning a unit, think about maybe it being at most 2 weeks long, at very most. And in your unit, you'll have an anchor standard. The visual and performing arts make it very easy for you because they put the anchor standards at the top. In English language arts, you don't have that. So with the ELA standards, you will have standards, but they don't say anchor standard. So we're going to do 3rd grade just because it's, I don't know, I'm just going to do 3rd grade. You have a standard and substandards, but it doesn't say the words anchor standard. But for your unit, you're going to have an anchor standard for both the arts and the English. You need to pick one of each. You can have more than 2 standards if you want. I don't know that that's a great idea at this point. I really want you to just focus on 2. You'll become proficient with standards later and you can incorporate more, but right now I just want you to have 2 focus standards. 1 arts, 1 English. I would say for this class, it's probably easier to do a reading standard. It's probably easier to integrate with arts if you're doing reading, because then you can incorporate children's literature. If you want to do a writing standard, that's fine. Either one is fine. I would suggest reading, and also just depending on your partner teacher, I use that word, cooperating teacher, they may have you doing reading more than writing in their class. Talk to them, but, and we'll be flexible, but I just recommend reading if you can. So when you build your unit plan, you're going to pick a bolded standard from English, you're going to pick a standard from reading, from arts, and that's what you're going to use to start to build your unit. So I see you guys have started to kind of pull some standards that you're interested in. That's awesome. Keep that in the back of your head as we continue talking about planning. So the first step before you do anything else is to turn that standard into an objective. Objectives are difficult at first, but they get much easier. But my biggest piece of advice to you is keep it as simple as possible, because your students have to understand your objective. If you don't understand it, if I don't understand it, they're not going to understand it. So, can I just see a show of hands? Has anybody written objectives before? Okay, it seems like most of you. Can you tell me what makes a good objective? What's something that you would have in a good objective?
Something short, sweet, and easy.
Okay, short, sweet, and easy. Shauna, did you have something to say?
I've always been told to put a descriptive word in there, like students can state blah, 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 students can identify blah, 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 and then put a measurement so they can identify factors of 6 with 50% accuracy or something like that.
So those are 2 really important parts of an objective. So I'm going to start with the first one. Where do you find that descriptive word?
At the beginning.
Sorry, no, if you're looking for a word to maybe put in your objective, where would you go to find a good word?
The standard.
I'm being very confusing. Yes, the standard is a good place to look. There's also this great guy called Bloom. Bloom's taxonomy is a great place to look for active words that can go in your objectives. So I like this one. There are tons of different versions of this. The first thing you need to think of when you're thinking of your objective is, what level of understanding do I want students to get to? Do I just want them to remember something? Do I want them to understand that something? Do I want them to apply the thing? Do I want them to analyze the thing? Do I want them to evaluate it? Or do I want them to create? When you know which thing you're getting at, or going to get to, then you can start writing your objective. So, for a unit, you need to get to the red section. Your objective needs to have them doing some kind of evaluating or creating when you're doing a unit plan. Your individual lessons will be these other ones, but a unit should get to evaluating and creating. So as you're thinking about writing your objective, you want to have one of those, maybe not one of those words exactly, but a word like that. So compose, criticize, film, write. They're doing something bigger than just remembering or applying. The second thing you said is to have a measurement. And you used a percentage, which I think is great in math or science. In ELA, it is really hard to show proficiency at a percentage unless you're doing a test. Because it's hard to say, so-and-so did this essay or this writing piece with 70% accuracy. It's hard to say that, but you can still use numbers. So I like to use writing an essay as an example of this. Students will be able to write a compare and contrast essay using 4 concrete details. 4 is a measurable thing. I can tell if they use 4 details. So you can use a percentage, but I recommend, because it's easier to measure in ELA, that you use a number of things. I want them to have so many characters in their narrative, or I want to see so many sentences. So that's not always the best, but something measurable, but not always a percentage. Okay, so we have 2 parts of our objective. We have the word, the thing they're going to do, and we have the measurement. There are 2 other things you need to have in there. The audience, which is 4th grade students, whatever, whoever the people are that you want to do the thing, and the condition under which they're doing it. So that might be collaboratively, it might be independently, it could be through a skit. Whatever the condition is through which they're doing the thing, that needs to be in there. So we use the mnemonic device ABCD. Audience, behavior, condition, degree. That's how you remember. So audience is the student, behavior is the Bloom's word, condition is the context, and degree is the number. So now that, because the other thing that Shauna said was start with the standard. It's a great place to go. So we're just going to use this first ELA standard that's up here. That's standard 5. Determine meaning and develop logical interpretations by making predictions, inferring, drawing conclusions, analyzing, synthesizing, providing evidence, and investigating multiple interpretations. That's an insane thing, right? Students aren't going to know what that means. I want everybody to take a minute and do your best to write an objective for that standard using all 4 parts: audience, behavior, condition, degree. So piece of paper or on your phone or whatever, write an objective for that standard. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Which standard is it? Which number? 5.
Standard 5. Keith, do you need paper?
I'll do it in my brain. It's good.
Well, I want you to write it down.
Okay.
If that's okay. Here, I can give you, I just want you to be able to identify the 4 parts.
Okay.
Okay, now as you're writing, you may not be done yet, and that's okay. I want you to look at your objective and think, will my students be able to understand this? Will they know what I'm asking them to do? If not, edit. And also remember that you're writing a unit level objective. So if you think it could be done with one lesson, it might not be big enough. Okay, I'm going to have you turn to a partner and tell them what you have so far. If you didn't finish, that's okay. But share your objective with them and give each other some feedback on your objective.
I did not get that far. But yes, come here.
All I have is the student will be able to understand and.
I put it in groups.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, I swear I don't normally write like this.
Yeah, once I have that objective, everything else is very comes naturally.
I don't know why. I think I read too far into it.
I feel like they want you to word it in such a specific way that it just makes it complicated.
Now you're thinking about this.
And it has to be something. What was your You literally can't put all those words in there. Like predicted.
Just so I was thinking like I got stuff. So I was like, how do I put like logical interpretations? I'm assuming we'll explain they think the text meant by using like 4 concrete details from the text.
And you've got all the parts, which is great.
I had that written out. It was just a little different because it was not fully in it.
Yeah, I focused on like I made it smaller and I didn't make it place.
Yeah,
I had to scratch out some of my stuff.
I don't feel like that's something that can be covered in one lesson.
Visualize how this would happen.
That's like
This is supposed to be a unit.
Yeah,
because I didn't make any units there.
I guess I'm not seeing the connection between questions and inferences.
like how I wrote like a 6-degree detail.
Yeah.
I wonder if it could be.
How is it using inferences to develop their questions?
Oh yeah, can you say that, or do you have to put like a number, like?
What's gonna happen? And, sorry. I can choose things.
Math ones are easy.
Predictions of what's gonna happen, so that it will put it in.
That's not
Questions.
So I can see this working well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, I put that. This part is like the sentence, like with a summative assessment. This is like a short lesson. You don't
No, don't.
Something it's
but for service lessons, they require
I always just put the CT.
This is what I use as because so somebody walks in,
I usually just gave them
and they're dripping.
something.
What?
That's right inside. It's not.
But I really like to.
If I had time, sometimes I
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
the chance to give up.
They call the
I would like work too.
my school is why I was saying it like that. But I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So I think this is a really strong
But I
standard. I think changing that to predictions is better.
Yeah.
Our strict
Yeah,
standard.
that's what we're thinking. We
Because
were
we couldn't group them, we couldn't do projects.
I started with like a smaller one, like not like the unit one, so I don't really and go back. But like, do you incorporate like just like
Also, I had the idea for the
or do you say like
too, and
awesome?
idea for students to be able
I don't
to pick their favorite song,
Right, but I said students will
visualize to picture format,
understanding of the
basically
text
get a detailed format of what we think that will be.
whatever.
Depending on what your ELA standard is, you may be able to do that.
So
You
I
have to
have-
rethink it. That sounds good.
But it's just an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't think that's right.
Analyze and investigate a whodunit scenario and make an
Yeah.
educated prediction of who the criminal is and defend their prediction with 4 pieces of evidence. I feel like that could be done throughout an entire unit. You could add some science in there, you could do
Yeah.
art. They have to make the crime scene. I
You were
don't
just
know.
talking about, I don't think it has to have.
There's a lot you could do with that though.
That just needs to draw.
That could be a unit.
I don't really care about brownie points.
Okay, I'm gonna have us come back. I know probably not everybody got the chance to share as much as you want, but the goal of this was really just to get you talking and thinking about writing objectives. So there isn't a right and wrong necessarily. There is a more right than another, but this is really just you practicing objective writing. One thing I think that we kind of get in the weeds with objectives is wanting to say too much, like give too much context. So the shorter you can be, the better, because you don't want to confuse students. But otherwise, I'm not going to have you share them out as the whole group. I just wanted you to get a little practice with this. The first thing that you're going to do, the first part of your lesson plan is to submit, it's stuck again, is to submit the objective and standard to me so I can give you some feedback. I think even before you submit it to me, you may want to share it with your CT to make sure it's something that they want you to do. So the first part is due January 27th, which is soon. That's very soon. But it's really just identify the standards, create the objectives, and talk about what your assessment is going to be. So objective, standard, and assessment should all match. So whatever your objective is that you wrote there, that should be what your assessment is. It should all be the same. So now that you've had a little practice, what questions do you have about writing objectives? So we looked at standards, you took some time to write an objective, practice. The next part is the assessment. I highly recommend sharing your ideas with Dr. Collazo because this is what her class is all about, is assessment. So when you start working on performance tasks that you want students to do, check with Dr. Collazo and say, this is my objective, this is my assessment. Do they work? Do you think that works? She has great insight into that kind of thing. So our classes are really going to go hand in hand. So I definitely recommend checking with her. I'm sure you'll talk about this in her class, but I'm gonna preface this because I have students do it wrong a lot. You do not have a pre-assessment, a formative assessment, and a summative assessment in every class. You should have it in every unit. That's multiple days. But your pre-assessment should happen at the beginning of the unit, You do formative assessment all throughout, so that's where you're checking for student understanding. And then your summative assessment is the last thing you do in the unit. It's the end. So every lesson plan does not have all three. Every lesson plan pretty much should have formative, but pre-assessment and summative are bookending your unit plan. Okay, we're going to talk more about that. The second part of your lesson planning project is your understanding by design unit. We are going to work next week. We're going to actually work through one that's been completed so you can see what it looks like. They're complicated, but it's messy to lesson plan. So they're going to be messy and complicated. That's okay. This says 3 lesson plans. It should say 2. I just realized that. See, I told you there were mistakes in here. You're creating 2 lesson plans for this class, not 3. You're teaching 2 lesson plans for this class, I should say. You're creating a unit plan. You're doing 2 full lesson plans out of that unit plan. The hope is that you'll teach both of them. Okay? I want to make sure you're all with me.
So is lesson planning part 2 also due on the 27th?
Nope. It is due on February 10th. Thank you for catching that. It's correct in the syllabus. I just put it wrong on the PowerPoint. Sorry about that. So you have a couple weeks between part 1 and part 2. And in that time, we will work in class on some of this, on some of the understanding by design stuff, but your messy unit plan will be due on the 10th. So do you want to see what that template looks like? You guys want me to pull that up real quick? Yeah? Okay. So it's in Blackboard. I say that. I hope it's in Blackboard. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. No, that's the readings. In the assignment. It should be in the assignment. Yeah, I didn't put it in Blackboard. Again, sorry. I'm making myself a note so I don't forget to do it. I'll pull it up over here. I could have sworn I put all this stuff in there. I don't know what I did. Okay. This is the template. You do not have to use this template if you want to do, if you want to just make your own Word document, that's fine, I don't care. But you do have to do everything that's on it. So the first part of the lesson planning that you're submitting is basically stage 1. So establish goals, that's your standards and objectives. Understandings that are desired, that's the big overarching thing. So with the standard we were just looking at, they would need to understand what inferencing is. So the big overarching things they need to know to be successful. Essential questions are your understandings turned into big questions. So what does it mean to inference would be an essential question. And then what students will know and be able to do, this is like the smaller stuff. So they will know that an inference is filling in a gap. So this is going to be just like the pieces of your lesson or pieces of your unit that you'll use to build the lessons. That's the first part. The second part is your assessment. A performance task is the unit level assessment. So we'll talk through how to fill this part out. The second page of the performance task is just drilling down. It's so you know what you're evaluating students on. That's what this page is all about. Page 4 is where you lay out what is happening day by day. So day 1 this, day 2 this. The last page is this all put into a calendar. So this is how teachers really plan. They take the big ideas and then they drill down and they do daily planning. So on that very first part of the lesson planning assignment that you're doing, part 1, that's due on the 27th, that's really what you'll put on the first page. That's mostly what's going to go on the first page. And then part 2 is filling out that whole thing to submit. It's not going to be perfect. I promise you that's okay. I'm going to give you lots of feedback. And then the third part is where you're going to take that unit plan, you're going to pick one day of the unit plan, and you're going to fill out the lesson plan template as if you're going to teach it. So that's why I'm saying you want to talk with your CT now to figure out what you're going to be teaching, so you can start thinking about the unit plan and then know on this day I'm going to teach this, and then you can build your lesson plan out of it. And then part 4 is revising the lesson plan and actually teaching it. Part 5 is your second lesson plan. Part 6 is revising the second lesson plan and actually teaching it. And part 7 is submitting both final lesson plans to me, all revised with your reflection on how it went when you actually taught them.
How long do you want the reflection to be?
That's a good question. I think a solid paragraph is fine. You're not going to have a ton to say other than this went terribly and here's why, this went awesome and here's why. You're not going to, I don't really care that, you don't have to make it super long. If you have a lot to say, that's great. But a solid paragraph is fine. My biggest goal is for you, after you've taught it, to then go back and revise it. So I taught this thing, next time I teach it, here's how I'll do it differently. Because no lesson is perfect. There's plenty of things we can do differently. So my hope is with this class that you learn to be reflective practitioners, that you implement something and then immediately think about how you could change it to make it better. I think that's everything for the lesson planning. So tell me what you're thinking about unit and lesson planning. What are things that you are wondering or worried about that we can talk about?
Something that I was worried about was if my teacher didn't know what she was going to be teaching at that point, but then I remembered that they do reading court. I just brought it up because somebody else might be worried about it.
Yeah, no, that's a very real concern. And there will be CTs who don't know. They may just say to you, whatever you want to teach is fine. In that case, listen and do whatever you want. They should have, most schools have some kind of scope and sequence that, they'll be like, well, by February, we should be doing this, or by March, we should be doing this. It's hard to know. It's really, as a teacher, it's hard to know what's going to happen. We might get shut down. We might have a snow day. It's hard to know, but if you can plan your unit to be flexible, and then just be ready that you might have to change your lesson plan. It's not ideal. I know a lot of work goes into them, but it can happen. I think that's a very good point. But also, we have the reality of you're learning to teach, and we want to get you ready as much as possible. If it happens that somebody is not able to teach because of quarantine, in that event, we will have you teach each other. So if somebody doesn't have a class to teach, you'll teach each other. I'm hoping that by the time you're teaching, we will be able to be face-to-face all the time, but who knows? COVID sucks. Ruins everything. What other questions or concerns do you have? One question I've had before is if you're at the same school and in the same grade level, can you plan together? Absolutely. You must each do separate lesson plans, and your differentiation should be different because you have different students in your class. But yes, if you are in the same grade level and in the same school, even if you're in the same grade level and in different schools, I encourage you to plan together. It's real life. That's how we do things in the schools. So you may work together, absolutely. Okay, so to recap, your practicum hours are the most important thing. Lesson planning is going to be the most time-consuming thing. Your art projects will be done in class. The scavenger hunt you want to do sooner rather than later, so you can start using that stuff for your final exam. And the final, I will send a survey out to find out what's the best time for you all to do the final exam. I think that's the basics. Another thing I want to say again, because I don't know if everybody heard me, you are welcome to redo any assignment in this class with the exception of the final exam because there's no time. Otherwise, if you want to redo something, you are welcome to. I think learning doesn't happen in a day, and if you want to show that you've grown, you're welcome to do work a second time. And a
So
third
it's
time.
better to like turn something in than not turn something in at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty with lesson planning. There always is. Even if you're not confident, turn it in. The exception I have to letting you redo stuff is if you turn in something incomplete or late. If it's incomplete or late, I don't let you redo it because there's not a way to, well, I guess that's, typically I won't let you. It depends on the reason that it was late or the reason that it's incomplete, but most of the time it's just not fair to everybody else to allow somebody to turn something in and then not have finished it and then get to do it again.
So without a good reason, you can't turn something in late or...
Oh no, I don't accept late work. Unless there's a good reason, like if you've had a family emergency, I do not accept late work. Teachers, you can't show up to the class without having your lesson done, so we need to learn to meet deadlines. That being said, I'm a very understanding person. If you have something come up, just let me know. But yeah, late work doesn't apply. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The best way for you guys not here to get a hold of me is email. I'm pretty quick with email. If you can't reach me via email, just try my office phone. But most of the time, I will not usually answer emails over the weekend. Otherwise, you should get an answer from me in a couple of hours during the weekday. One thing I do also like to say, because I'm kind of inflexible with late work, if there is a deadline that you realize conflicts with something, like a major assignment is due on the same day as Dr. Palazzo's major assignment, let me know and we can adjust due dates. I am not married to the dates. I try to space them out so that you're not doing all your major stuff at the end of the semester. But if we need to push stuff back, whatever, just communicate with me. I'm flexible. As questions come up, please don't hesitate to ask. I will always remind you at the end of class what's coming up the next time. So for next time, we're going to talk about what literacy is and what art is, and we're going to do some practice unit planning stuff. Our in-class art project is going to be a mixed media self-portrait, so bring anything that you might want to use to create your self-portrait. If you're a good drawer and you want to bring a pencil and just draw your self-portrait, cool. If you aren't, like me, you want to bring magazines to cut out or, you know, whatever, that's fine. Anything that you might want to create it. So you're going to need at least a piece of paper and something to draw with. But you can bring glue, markers, magazines, whatever, to create your self-portrait. So be thinking about what you might want to include on that. And then you have 2 readings, the first chapter of Literacy in the Arts and 6 Good Reasons for Using the Arts. Everything, all the readings are posted in Blackboard. You do not have to buy a book for this class.